Welcome to the Field Lab podcast. We know that you're all here because you're passionate about health, learning about true health. Maybe it's keeping your health, maybe it's finding your health, maybe it's helping someone else with their health. We all have different reasons why we're here. If you run a human day connected to a really good environment that's filled with light, water, magnetism, that's filled with love and community, that is how humans default to health. Weight has become the primary metric for health in the modern world. As a result, weight loss has become the central focus. This paradigm has created many ideas and beliefs about what weight loss should look like, many of which I firmly believe are leading us farther and farther from true health. But at the top of the list is the idea that weight loss should be linear, that if you just cut carbs, count calories, or exercise more, the number on the scale will go down at a predictable rate. If you're not experiencing it this way, then you're not doing it right. Desperate for health, this leaves many people willing to try or do anything, and often at the expense of their true health. If you're following along, you know that nature isn't linear. There's a season for everything, and that includes healthy weight loss, and for that matter, healthy weight gain as well. In part one, we talk about the seasonal cycle of weight loss and gain, the implications of forcing weight loss in the modern world, and ask the question that's at the foundation of this discussion. Is weight loss the right goal if you're seeking true health? In the deep dive part two, we explore the science. You'll learn why not all fat is created equally, the reasons why seasonal weight fluctuation is a feature, not a bug, and how to create weight loss that supports true health. All deep dive episodes are available exclusively to members of the Field Lab Network. These discussions take you deeper into the science and give you the action steps you need to build true health. Membership also provides you with access to an entire ecosystem filled with courses, blogs, Q&As, and of course, community. To become a member, head over to the link in the show notes. Now let's dive into the episode.
So if people are following along, hopefully they know that we're in a unique moment of transition where days are getting shorter, nights are getting longer, UV is strong. There's this moment where things are changing, and part of that change could potentially be some weight gain or stabilization, especially if they're doing what we're telling them to do, like doing this full day correctly. And that can cause some stress or some frustration for people. So I think we should start with kind of recognizing that that's part of how we run the normal human seasonal cycle. And it's not linear, like the healing journey. Your weight will change throughout the year. So I think you should kind of tell us, why is that the case, and why is that part of how nature actually runs the normal decentralized human?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a tough one because when you look at the health space, like the exercise fitness space, I mean, we are just taught to think everything is about, weight loss, managing weight that would be the same day in, day out, winter versus summer, like, which is so interesting because that could make sense if you were a human living the same day over and over and over again. The 72-degree day,
Hmm.
up, waking, sleeping, always the same, unchanged. But what do we see in reality?
Right.
Like, what is the human reality today, versus maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago? Like, when you go back and look at just pictures of humans, the human form now looks different than the human form looked before.
Absolutely.
Now, we would sort of argue that it's the changing environment that is shifting the human form a little bit so it can be more adaptable to an environment that has more non-native EMF noise, and those types of features where, in it 50 years ago, you might look at the beach in New England and, most human form kind of looked
Pretty
pretty
similar.
similar. There was definitely more leanness, it wasn't
Mhm.
so much about human fatness. But we're not necessarily talking about that. We're kind of talking about the now, which, what do we see in practice? Now that we've been doing a lot of biophysics based, decentralized healthcare, it's clear what happens to patients in their actual reality
Mhm.
is oftentimes weight gain in the summer cycle, weight loss in the winter cycle. And there should be a distinction there. Weight isn't just fat mass, right?
Right.
So, weight is the whole of your human structure, which does include fat mass, but also includes muscle and organs. And actually, honestly, a lot of patients who come to us have like really poor like lean tissue mass, like their organs probably aren't being built properly with normal redox. They might have more visceral fat than just subcutaneous fat. Like their body composition is really an expression of a poor redox potential.
Mhm.
And that is going to have to shift if you want to have health again.
Right.
So in that transition, it can be a pretty wild ride for the body's changing form, which often will look like changing weight on the scale. That can be really confusing though, because if someone's just looking at what they look like in the mirror, sometimes they might not even look different in the mirror.
Exactly.
Sometimes it might be extra fat mass in the summer. And I think it's really important, and why we want to talk about this is that it often can be that, which can be a really confusing thing because we live in New England. Everything about New England is like you're a beach body, right?
Mhm.
Like the whole, I mean, gosh, I go back to like when I was in school, it's like medical school and as an RD, it's like everyone was obsessed about starting your gym routine in January to get ready for the beach. Like, I mean, this is just such a New England cultural thing that you would think I need to get in my best shape so
Mhm.
I can be my thinnest in the summer so I can go to the beach and like wear my bikini.
And everybody seems to think you have your best opportunity for weight loss in the summer,
Right. Yes. So that is
which is not a great thought from a health perspective.
It's not a great thought from a health perspective. It's possible if you're running on artificial blue light, doing artificial blue light gym exercise, running artificial carbohydrate diet. And when you think about, I mean, we did that episode where if that's the normal day that you're running for your metabolism, you might be able to achieve weight loss. And that is a really unfortunate thing for your health.
Yes.
Because if you step out of the way, if you embrace the journey, and if you really just allow your body to find its return to health, then you have to see what it will do on its own.
Mhm.
Does your body need to potentially gain a little bit of fat mass? That's possible. In
Mhm.
fact, it's likely if
Maybe necessary.
you've had years where you've not had health and redox potential, that might have to happen.
Mhm.
Now, again, everyone's got their personal context. So if you're starting off overweight or obese and you have visceral fat to lose, you may lose that fat, but you might need to gain some purposeful subcutaneous fat. You might have to gain organ mass. You might have to gain muscle mass. And
Mhm.
so that, like, weight is such a confusing metric. Like, the scale is so confusing to our modern times where it might have not been so confusing 50 years ago,
Mhm.
100 years ago, but we have to be okay with changing that
Right.
marker because now it isn't a great marker to understand human health in our current state
Mhm.
where we've changed the environment so much. So we do have to think about our human form needing to look a little different, likely going to be a little different. And then if you're really running a good POMC biology system, you might see a little bit of a swing throughout the seasons. You might see that there's a little more weight on the scale in the summer. You then may see that you're your lightest actually in the winter. Again, opposite of what we're really told, because if you're just a normal modern human and you're doing winter by, living an indoor lifestyle and, running an artificially lit longer day, eating food from the grocery store, which is, not seasonal or local at all, and then you throw in like holidays in the winter, everyone perceives a lot of people perceive that that's when they're their fattest, which is not that's in opposition to a natural mammalian cycle. That if go look outside, it's like those squirrels are really skinny in the winter.
It's everything. Everything, like, gets fat. Like, we all know that animals that hibernate get fat before the winter
Yes.
and then come out their leanest,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
somehow we don't do that.
yeah, I mean, gosh, we don't need to do hibernation, but we do have a little
But there's a
phase
fluctuation.
in the sleep cycle
Mhm,
that does work differently in the winter. And I can definitely say that again in practice, like our clinical experience is absolutely this story,
mhm,
that if there is potential for fat mass loss, it should really be optimized for January, February, March, like the winter cycle, the super dark cycle. That's when the body really can pull from that fat mass to do amazing autophagy, like kind of the bear coming out of hibernation, like
mhm,
really is his or her best self.
mhm,
And what is that? That's them preparing for the ultimate redox loading of the summer. That's really what the human body should be doing in the winter, that we are, here to support patients around that journey. But initially, it may take, again, three summers. We're talking about 3 winters, so you might be also seeing some natural swing. And and that is not always a bad thing. Even once you find your body in a stronger health groove, you might still see that swing.
mhm,
And there's some difference. Like I definitely would say like we see it a little differently in the females versus the males. The females, premenopause versus post. Like there's always so many little nuances, but that's important then to realize, like, if you're, a male body, I think we could use you as a normal
mhm.
that you kind of always look the same.
I definitely would say I feel a little bit more gain in the summer,
Okay.
like what we're
Okay.
saying, and then the
So
winter, I'm, like, way leaner.
yes,
Yeah.
so I mean, you're a younger guy.
Mhm.
Probably when like my younger male patients, there might be a slightly
It's
less
minute.
of a,
It's very
a
small.
swing,
Yeah.
but still maybe noticeable.
Yeah.
As you get older, it might be a little more noticeable. The females are a little easier to see.
Mhm,
I know Michaela was mentioning, so she's like your equivalent, like young female, for fertility, way before menopause. I think she had mentioned like, "Oh, I see probably about a 10-pound change."
mhm,
She's using body composition machine that we have here, and so she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't know it." Like, if you, like, put your clothes on and kinda look in the mirror, it generally for her doesn't look different,
mhm,
but there's a little more fat mass in the summer, a little less in the winter, so, like, that's probably a common pre-menopause, fertility mode state for a female, which is normal
mhm.
for current times. Maybe if it was 50 years ago, it would be less of a swing. And
Okay.
and I can say, that's what I hear from a lot of my older patients is their hardest thing around weight gain is they're like, no, that was not what my body did before.
Mhm,
But they saw their body through sameness for most of their, pre-menopausal life, and then they perceive it's menopause when they get their weight gain,
mhm.
but really it's a reflection of their biophysics gone wrong.
Right. Gotcha. It almost sounds like people are living a chronic summer now. Like they're only
Like a
living
fake chronic space
they
summer.
but then if you're following along, you know that there might be some fat mass gain in the summer. So if you live that cycle chronically, it's gonna just confuse the whole picture and you're gonna gain, 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 gain. So you have to experience those seasons to do what's supposed to happen
Yeah.
for the normal biophysics of you.
Yeah, I mean, you think about now we've got this chronic, you know, fake summer where it's actually strong blue
Mhm,
but UV deficient,
mhm,
which is, running the programs that are still available to run. So we can't create new here, but the environment created a new situation.
right.
So when you kind of again, this will be probably more part two because it's deeper biophysics, but I think it's important to say it here that when you look at how does the body adapt? Well, if you're using this POMC biology system and now the environment's changing, but it's still run on light and temperature,
Mhm,
then the opportunity is you have to still use the same opportunity,
right.
which then is a totally different environment than humans were ever exposed to previously.
Mhm,
So if you look at this heavy polarized blue light that is actually also not just reflective, it's now being, directly emitted into our eyes, into the brain. Like that's running a totally different program,
mhm,
which is then driving the hypothalamus to run very confusing metabolism. Now we can see it. What is actually happening? Well, it's clearly insulin resistance. It's clearly a weight gain
mhm,
like signature opportunity, but then there's this weird kind of lack of UV, which would never happen in nature. That typically, if it was strong blue light, you'd always have strong UV light.
exactly.
So now, it's a like what's happening? Well, you have to understand it through the lens of the POMC system
Mhm,
that is telling our bodies what's possible. So now we see that everyone's becoming this slightly chronically never turned off insulin resistance
mhm,
because that's driving that arm of the POMC system. But then the UV never shows up. So now we don't have the melanin production to balance that out.
mhm.
And now we've got this, massive confusion.
Thermodynamic
Yes. Now,
collapse.
I know it's kind of down in the weeds of like, the normal person, which is the normal modern person, which is not who we're trying to talk to those who are trying to not be that not normal
Mhm.
modern person. But most people are
That's the
emerging
reality.
from that reality.
Mhm,
So that's why, like, if that's your normal, the only way that you can manage your weight is to perceive it as, okay, we're gonna change the thermodynamics here and just burn it up as
mhm.
heat with going to the gym and counting calories. And like, again, you have to kind of think very biochemically when the biophysics has eroded.
Right.
So the biophysics is gone because the UV is gone.
Mhm,
So now you're running on just kind of pure biochemistry, which we're really good at. Centralized health and centralized medicine is really good at biochemistry,
mhm.
but that is not health.
Right.
So now you're just draining your redox potential.
Mhm,
Now you're actually taking from your health and your healing potential by, pulling from that redox potential to maybe get by.
mhm.
It's like a slippery slope,
Right.
and then gosh, throw in like GLP-1s and
It's like a
like
whole other
that
story.
confusing part of the story. Clearly we're in this major moment where it's just massive confusion
Mhm,
that we have a lot of overweight people of all ages, generally as a human population, we weigh more than we've ever weighed before,
mhm,
but it's a lot of visceral fat, it's less sub-Q fat, it's less lean tissue, it's less organ weight, and that is such a error of human form that
mhm.
we need to understand through the lens of this POMC system, that where it's going wrong is how the human adapts,
Mhm.
which is using that system, which is running on native EMF, but also can run on non-native EMF. And that's the only choice our body has to adapt
Mhm.
our metabolism.
Right.
So because that's what's built into the human, we're going to run those programs, but whatever light and aberrant fields come in is going to run that system. So if you just step back and don't know any of the science and just see what's actually happening,
Mhm.
it's very clear
Right.
that people are having a hard time managing their weight, that it doesn't follow a seasonal cycle of normal mammalian cycle, which then must make you step back and realize you're not running a mammalian seasonal life.
Mhm.
So if you're running a straight centralized day, then you're going to get a straight centralized expression.
Mhm. And you might make the mistake of trying to offset what's happening from a seasonal perspective with more exercise, or I know we were talking about a lot of people right now saying, I need to cut my carbs and
Yeah.
need to count calories. Like all this stuff seems to come back up right now, which makes sense because people are experiencing, if they're doing their day right, maybe a little gain, but the response shouldn't be to try to take
Lose
control
weight.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because then what happens is if you delete some seasonal local carbs, then you might actually be changing your opportunity for the winter.
Mhm.
If you understand that everything about the summer is trying to load information so that way the body can improve its redox potential, maybe gain a little bit of fat mass in the sense that there's maybe shifting of the energy, because a lot of times it's you're shifting visceral fat to sub-Q fat, you're shifting the mitochondrial state so it can run properly. So I mean there's some deeper biophysics there, but ultimately what people are experiencing is a weight gain
Mhm.
when you're committing to a decentralized day,
Mhm.
and you want to kind of step back and let your body do what it needs to do.
Right.
And that can be uncomfortable
Mhm.
because we're so normalized to this, beach body and like the summer body and, wanting that just because it's really a cultural thing.
Right.
But, what if just, nobody had mirrors and
Yeah, that wasn't so
yeah, or like you just did you.
right. Yeah. No, I think that's why we need to have these conversations so you can always reframe your mindset around what's happening in the context of the bigger picture
Yeah.
and trying not, like we always say, you're not the CEO of your health. It's really you being in flow with nature and that decentralized network that will ultimately allow you to express health. If you get in the way, it's
Yes.
going to be much more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, we know like it's been like Mark Hyman and some of these like, these more functional medicine based thinkers
Mhm.
are really trying to like make that the way that we think, that like we can be the CEO of our health, like we can run every aspect of our health. And that is such a centralizing idea. Like
Yeah,
this, like, yeah, could you do that?
I'm
I
sure.
know
So.
one of our friends was mentioning that too. Is he had asked about it on our monthly Q&A, and I love that question that he was like he got it.
Mhm.
He understood that okay, this makes sense, that I could choose to, if I had a strong redox potential, like lose weight by eliminating calories
Mhm.
and exercising more, but should I do that?
Yeah, is
And
that a
like
healthy
that was a
system?
great question.
Mhm.
Like that's where we're trying to get people to, is realizing that once you know that, gosh, you can just you make informed decisions. Like
Mhm.
you become wise to how decentralized networks work. And now you don't have to be the CEO.
Right.
You actually become part of the network,
Right.
and you know what to do,
Mhm.
where then yes, maybe you need to do some autophagy, maybe you do need to optimize your body taking that fat mass and healing with it,
Mhm.
but you should be doing that in January,
Right.
synced to a super seasonal diet in January.
Mhm.
And like once you see the power of that, like that's again decentralizing you, because most people would naturally do the first inclination, which is, summer, I'm gonna cut my carbs, I'm gonna exercise more, I'm gonna, do this
Mhm.
beach body thing.
Right. So is the goal then for you to take, if you were like somebody who perceived they had weight to lose, do you want to look at it over the course of maybe 3 to 4 years, and
Yes.
that each winter you are coming out of that season with less fat mass? Is that the right approach?
I mean,
Or
that's what we see in
okay.
practice. I would say everyone's got a unique experience that their body has.
Mhm.
A lot of what we see, I mean, we've seen, patients try everything and do this and lose 100 pounds,
Mhm.
like it's really cool. And they'll always say the same thing to us, like, gosh, that was a lot easier than counting the calories and going to the gym. And like it's such a I mean, we've heard this so many times now of it's the wow of being so surprised that it isn't about just diet and exercise,
Right.
that it's about a decentralized day. But that said, it all depends on the uniqueness of you.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, like I'm going to call out again, like the postmenopausal woman, um, tends to maybe be a little heavier on the scale than their like prior self. But when you look at all the longevity studies and like what that looks like, it it generally looks like that.
Mm.
The healthiest women in some of these longevity studies are slightly heavier than they were previously, and that makes sense.
Yeah, it's too
It's
bad it's not like that isn't the cultural norm.
right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Go for
where
it.
I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't call out Mark Hemmon too much, but like I know where he's at. Like I see some of his posts. It's just, he's got a lot. He's like building his 12 pack, and I get
Mm.
why that's interesting to people. But when you look at it from a health perspective, I worry.
Yeah, I would think muscle on a postmenopausal woman would be actually inhibiting
Yes,
longevity to some
and a
degree.
man too,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
to some degree. I mean, maybe not so much because there's obviously
it's
different
a little
fertility
different.
cycles there
Yeah.
too. But we definitely know that there's not longevity data that ties to six packs or
Yeah, trying to
excessive.
hypertrophy your muscles as you're aging is probably not a great decision.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. No, yeah. Do you want to make sure you have
Yeah, you wanna be
lean
functional.
tissue? But again, like it's a totally different story than people are being sold. They're being sold that your abs are what matter,
Mhm.
not the weight of your organs. Not the weight of your muscle that holds up your structure.
Mhm.
That's the part that matters most.
Right. So would you also reframe the potential for weight gain as your body responding to seasonality in a positive way? So
Yeah.
actually
Yes.
maybe knows time and it knows where it is in the
The course of the
annual
year, yes.
cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's important to embrace the process where if you can kinda get out of the way, like,
Mhm.
don't be the CEO of your health, like, let your body do its full expression. You can see what that looks like,
Mhm.
because as you journey along, you might like, it becomes so obvious that once your body is building more redox potential, once your body is building more health, then it has more opportunity to do that, that actually you can gain a little fat mass in the summer, pull from that to do winter. And like when you're living in modern times, that's probably going to be some of the normal need of a body, because we are living now in aberrant fields and confusion and noise. And it's not, it is what it is.
Mhm.
Like now we can't change all of the non-native fields we've added to our ionosphere wasn't there 50 years ago.
Right.
Now it's there bouncing in between, and we're not escaping it.
No.
And then, there's other things that run metabolic programs,
Mhm.
and that has to do with the magnetic field and all the other things, which then shift what our body is doing. That is then this opportunity to see what is your body doing when you're really connecting to a normal day. Then you can run the normal programs of human to ultimately have health. And what does that look like? It's gonna, humans are gonna look different than we look 50 years ago
Mhm.
and 100 years ago. The human form, is that expression of a human connected to its environment. What's the most creative, beautiful expression of that is a human connected to, the full planet Earth.
Mhm.
And you can see that. I mean, go back into the Renaissance and David and like the ultimate like human form. I mean, it's crazy
Mhm.
how beautiful the human structure was. And this was not the human, going to the CrossFit gym.
Right. They were just existing.
They were just existing, connected to their full environment.
Mhm.
Now I realize that doesn't the same environment doesn't exist anymore,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
No, it's too bad.
Yeah.
But we can recreate quite a bit. I think we can actually connect to it a lot of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, what's the potential? The potential is it is still there.
Right.
It is still there. And, will that probably look like humans that are a little bit fatter
Mhm.
than our previous human selves? Probably.
Potentially,
When
yeah.
you look at the environment being so different.
Mhm.
Now I'm talking about like subcutaneous fat, not visceral fat, not aberrant fat. Some of what that's doing is really allowing us to run these change programs.
Right.
Can we do autophagy if there's, no stem cells from fat mass to do it? Not really.
Mhm.
Now, did humans have to run those programs so intensely in the past? Not really.
Right.
But now we have to
Mhm.
because we just have a different environmental signature.
Right.
That's complicated. So,
Maybe
yes.
that's part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe go a little deeper into that. So shouldn't look at weight loss as being good, bad, or
It
weight
will
gain
never
as
be
being
linear.
good,
Yes.
bad,
Yeah.
or
It's not like you should have
it's
a
not binary.
no.
It's not linear.
It's really nothing that we're told it
Right.
is, which is basically you should not have fat on your body. And that if you do, you're unhealthy. And that's just not true at all.
No.
I mean, we have many patients who have weight on their body that they don't necessarily like because they're normally using their previous self as their metric. But when we really analyze their health through the lens of biophysics, they're always healthier.
Mhm.
And that's just tough because again, we're normalized to think the human from 300 years ago, David is what the human form should look like. But then actually, let's argue that. Like I've been reading that Rene Dubois, I don't know, I'm not French, but like it was an old book called The Mirage of Health, and he was actually literally talking about this exact subject of like
Mm.
we chose that as the ideal human form, but like look all over the world.
Yeah, I think that's more of the story.
Yes,
Is we
so I should
culturalized.
be it's what I'm reminding you, like, we should be clear there that like we're using that like Mediterranean human form
Mhm.
as like the
The
cultural
pinnacle.
ideal, but that is like throughout the world,
It's not
not at
reality.
all.
Mhm.
And he was like a really cool thinker. He did, worked in microbiology and things like that. So like he was talking about how, like you look in Africa, like there were some cultures that were super tall because like that made sense when you
Mhm.
look at it thermodynamically. You look in like Latin America, there's kind of small, short, like robust body forms that helped thermodynamically. The Eskimos, you just like look all over the world,
Yes.
and most people don't look like David. I mean, obviously we live in America, and like the American ideal got kind of rooted in that.
Mhm.
But there are many places around the world that would like laugh at that.
100%. And maybe that's why they created a statue out of it because it was the exception and it was like it was rare.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't know, it's
I
weird.
don't think it was rare. Just like that was probably normal
Mhm.
for that Mediterranean environment.
Right.
But we don't live in the Mediterranean environment.
Mm.
It comes back to like the Mediterranean diet. Like,
Right.
people love the Mediterranean diet. Well, probably if you lived in the Mediterranean, it would be a great diet for you.
Exactly. Makes a lot of sense there.
Yes,
But we
but
live in a very different environment.
yeah, so it always comes back to the diets. It's like, there's Ayurveda, that I'm sure made a lot of sense when you lived in India. Like, same thing with Mediterranean diet. When you kind of look at some of the dietary paradigms, it made sense for the people who ate those diets
Exactly.
in those environments that, don't really exist anymore.
Exactly.
So yes, I digress.
No, that's good. I mean, I think, is that a good spot to end on, you
I
think?
think we should stop there only
Yeah.
because, the biophysics is fun. It's really interesting when you go kind of deep into the weeds there. But from a like initial way to think about this, most important takeaway is that using your weight as a metric of health is not a great metric of health.
It's not a good idea.
No.
Leads to some bad ideas, unfortunately.
Yes, and that actually may get in the way of you obtaining true health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Everyone's loaded with visceral fat, and the people in the functional medicine space are saying you just are eating too many carbohydrates.
Unfortunately, create these really bad ideas around it.
The tracking's back, tracking your weight, tying it to the calories. Like we always somehow go back to this over tracking, over analyzing, and it's really it traps you.
It's a half truth.
And it's a half truth. Once there's more decentralized wisdom, there's hope that things can change.
Right. If somebody has visceral fat, should they be trying to lose it?
It's visceral fat, ultimately, that needs to be fat that turns your biophysics back on.
Okay.